The book of Galatians, chapter 4, verse 26. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. First and foremost, I want to say all praises be to Ahaya, Bahasham Yeshah, Wa Rakak Wadash. This video is about Jerusalem being the cradle of civilization, being the hub of civilization, being the center of civilization, not Africa. Africa is not the hub of civilization. It's not the beginning of civilization. People lived before they lived and existed and walked through Africa and inhabited Africa. All right, and we're going to prove that through this video. Kwam Yasharallah. The book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 10. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and became into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good, and there is Bedlam, and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon, the same is that which compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third is Hiddekel, that is it which goeth towards the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. All right, so the Garden of Eden had one river, and that river had four heads, which are four other rivers, the four rivers we just read. Those four rivers feed into the Garden of Eden through that one river to water the Garden of Eden, like the scripture said. Now we're going to examine these four rivers and look at their location. See, what's funny is people worship the Egyptians, and the Egyptians worship the Nile, and people glorify the Egyptians. All right, the Egyptians looked at the Nile River like a snake. That's why they put the snake on their forehead, in regards to their pineal gland and all that madness. But the Nile River isn't one of the chosen rivers to flow into the land of the Garden of Eden, right? But all these rivers lie in the land that is called the Fertile Crescent, also known as the Mesopotamia. All right, the Mesopotamia, this is the lands that people lived in before they ever set a foot in Africa. All right, because, of course, when we're reading in Genesis 2 here, this is before Ham, Shem, or Japheth even came to go repopulate the earth to get their allocated lands. All right. The book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 22. And the Most High, Elohim, said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand, and take also the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Therefore the Most High Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden, to till the ground from whence he was taken. All right, so Adam was sent forth out of the garden. He didn't go into Africa. All right, he didn't take him and his family into Africa. Where did they go? Let's get a precept. The book of Genesis, chapter 4, verse 14. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And Ahiah said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Ahiah set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of Ahiah, and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. All right, so Cain went on the east of Eden. He went on the east because they were already casted out, you understand? So he didn't go into Africa. Let's continue to read. Verse 17. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. All right, so that's when man started first organizing in cities, dwelling in cities, and building cities together, right? And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Mehujael, and Mehujael begot Methusael, and Methusael begot Lamech. And Lamech took unto him two wives. The name of one was Adah, and the name of the other was Zillah. And Adah bare Jabal. He is the father as such as dwelt in tents, and of such as have cattle. All right, so that's when men started first taking cattle unto themselves, right? Like you would say, farming, right? And dwelling in tents. Because before that, people were just dwelling, just like without tents, without building cities, like we see here. And as his brother's name was Jubal, he was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. All right, so that's when men start to craft instruments, make instruments that instruments of music, you understand? And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. That's when man started making weapons of iron, all right, starting to forging iron and brass for armor, steel. There cometh war, you understand? And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. All right, so these people, they didn't dwell in Africa. They were still dwelling in the around the areas of the Garden of Eden, which would be the Mesopotamia, because all those rivers are in the area of the Mesopotamia that flowed into the Garden of Eden. You understand? Let's continue. Now let's get into some geography and look at the 4 rivers that flowed into the Garden of Eden. All right, so the Pison River, one of the rivers mentioned in Genesis, that flows into the garden to feed the main river in the garden. All right. It stretches from northern Saudi Arabia to southern Iraq all the way to Kuwait. That's nowhere in Africa. All right. Let's move to the next river. All right. So the Gihon River starts in southern Jordan, goes south all the way into the Red Sea, all the way down into compassing the whole land of Ethiopia, like the scripture said. It goes all the way south on the east of Ethiopia, right? All the way to Yemen, because modern day Yemen is considered Ethiopia, because modern day Yemen is old school Sabah, the kingdom of Sabah, or what some people know as Sheba, understand, which was a part of the Ethiopian Empire. All right. So it's like the scripture says, it compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. All right. It means it surrounded the whole land of Ethiopia, but not on the African side. All right. It bordered the whole land of Ethiopia. It's on the eastern side. All right. Because the Ethiopian Empire today included Sudan, the South Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Yemen. And Yemen's on the other side. It's not connected to the so-called African continent. All right. So when you look at Yemen, Yemen is Sabah. All right. So the Gihon River is on the eastern side. That's why it says it compasses, because it goes on the side of Sudan, it goes on the side of Ethiopia, right? All the way on the side of Yemen there, which was a part of the Ethiopian Empire, but not a part of the African continent. All right. All right. So the next 2 rivers on the list are the Hiddekel River, which today is called the Tigris, and the Euphrates. Both of these start in western Turkey, and the Hiddekel River comes down through northern Syria all the way through Iraq, and the Euphrates River is east of Syria and east of Iraq as well. See, the significance of showing the locations of these rivers is because people want to say that creation started in Africa and everybody came from Africa, when nobody even lived in Africa during the time of the Mesopotamia. All right, during the first time in the Mesopotamia of people inhabiting the Mesopotamia, nobody dwelt in Africa. All right. And the point is that Israel is a part of the Mesopotamia. All right. Israel is the hub of the Mesopotamia. So if people dwelt in Israel, or even before it was even called Israel, because it was called Canaan before that. All right. So if people dwelt in that land before there was even a so-called African, a Hamite that existed, then Africa is not the oldest civilization, let alone the oldest people. All right. Because remember in Genesis 4:16, it said, and Cain went out from the presence of the Most High. What's the presence of the Most High at that time? It's the Garden of Eden, right? And dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden, on the east. All right, so man didn't go south into Africa or west into Africa, right? Or further west, they went east. All right, let's get a precept to prove that. Genesis 3:23. Therefore Ahia the Most High sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. All right. So when we're talking about maps or we're talking about the locations of rivers and this and that, it's not about the locate trying to find the Garden of Eden, because nobody will ever find that. All right, there's angels, there's cherubims with flaming swords for protecting it. You can't walk in it, you can't see it. You understand? So it's not about that. But it said that he placed him at the east because remember Cain, he went out and he was went to the east of the garden, which was the land of Nod. Man went east. All right. The Most High set angels at the east of the garden. He didn't set them at the west or the south, right? Because man didn't go to the west or the south. He set them at the east. But still, though he didn't set them at the west or the south or the north, you still can't find the Garden of Eden. All right. But with that being said, if man went east of the garden, all right, and the Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent covers Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, and what is east of that, right, when it comes to the beginning of civilization, then that would say the Garden of Eden is closer to Israel than it is to even Africa or anything else. You understand? I'm not saying I know the location, but let's deal with logic. Let's continue. Now let's do some geography/history and look at the most continually inhabited town on Earth. All right, because if people say Africa is the oldest civilization and Africa is the beginning of creation, surely the oldest continually inhabited town should be in Africa because all of Africa is inhabited. You understand? People, I mean, it's been inhabited at one time. I mean, there's people that lived all throughout those jungles, all right, and all throughout the plains and all throughout the cities of Africa, all right. And people are nomadic throughout Africa, so they move throughout that land. So, what's the most continually inhabited city? Let's check out. This is from the worldatlas.com, and it reads, the oldest cities in the world. The city of Jericho is thought to have been first occupied as early as 12,000 BCE. So the city of Jericho is the oldest city in the world, all right? So if Jericho is 12,000, if archaeology says Jericho is 12,000 years old, right, or first thought to be inhabited at 12,000 BCE, and people still live in Jericho and continuously lived in Jericho, right? Then the city alone of Jericho is older than Africa, right? Than people inhabiting Africa, because Ham, Shem, and Japheth, they wasn't even around at that time, all right? So Jericho was inhabited, and it's still been continuously inhabited. Not no place in Africa. You understand? Jericho is in Israel. And of course, Israel is a part of the Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent. Let's continue. The book of Joshua, chapter 6, verse 20. So the people shouted when the priests blew with the trumpets. And it came to pass, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went into the city, every man straight before him. And they took the city, and they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox, and sheep, and ass with the edge of the sword. But Joshua had said unto the two men that had spied out the country, go into the harlot's house, and bring out thence the woman, and all that she have, and as ye swear unto her. And the young men that were spies went in, and brought out Rahab, and her father, and her mother, and her brethren, and all that she had. And they brought out all her kindred, and left them without the camp of Israel. And they burnt the city with fire, and all that therein. Only the silver and the gold and the vessels of brass and of iron they put into the treasury of the house of Ahiah. And Joshua saved Rahab the harlot alive, and her father's household, and all that she had. And she dwelleth in Israel even unto this day, because she hid the messengers which Joshua sent out to spy Jericho. All right, Jericho. Josh, we were the first people to successfully take a city with walls like that as Jericho, all right? Because Jericho was the oldest city. You understand? Why didn't the Egyptians take it? Huh? As Jericho's right there, why didn't the Egyptians take it? We had just came out of Egyptian captivity the whole time. Why didn't the Egyptians take the city of Jericho? Right? It was still standing with walls. I mean, if Jericho is the oldest city, all right, that we know of. And the Israelites, we took the city of Jericho and it had walls, right? Then historically, we took the oldest city in the world, all right, and burnt it with fire. So if you want to be technical and logical, if Jericho's in Israel and Jericho is the oldest city that we have recorded, right, and the oldest continually lived in city, then Israel's older than Africa. Understand? And people has lived in Israel before Africa. So all of that talking about Africa is the oldest civilization and it's the cradle of this and that. That's people lived in Syria before they lived in Africa. Damascus. Let's get that. Damascus is older than Africa, at least when it comes to continually inhabited cities. But let's look at the dates anyway. The old city of Damascus is considered to be among the oldest continually inhabited cities in the world. Why is it among the oldest and not the oldest? Because remember, Jericho is 12,000 BC, right? Excavations at Tel Ramad on the outskirts of the city have demonstrated that Damascus was inhabited as early as 8,000 to 10,000 BC. All right. Now let's check Africa, or Hamitville or Hamidyville, the land of Ham, or Ham, which means the land of hot in Hebrew. The oldest continually inhabited city in Africa, Luxor, is home to 500,000 residents and situated near the Nile River. All right, remember, because when people went and finally actually inhabited Africa, they situated themselves around that river in order to survive. That's why Egypt became the sprawling empire that it was in the most thriving empire out of the Hamites, right? Estimates place the time of habitation as 7,200 BC and 3,200 BC. All right, so Jericho is 12,000 BC and Damascus is 10,000 BC to 8. So Africa is nowhere near close to older than any part of the Mesopotamia. You understand? And when it comes in regards to habitation, so always remember, people dwelt in the Mesopotamia. People lived before they lived in Africa. Before the flood, people lived in the Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent, which involves Jericho, which is in Israel, which involves in Jerusalem, which is in Israel. All right, which Jerusalem was called Jebus before it was called Jerusalem. All right, but people didn't live in Africa. All right, Ham wasn't even born. There was no such thing as an Egyptian, or Ethiopia or a Cushite. You understand? To live or have a land in Africa allocated to them. Everybody dwelt in Mesopotamia. You understand? So Israel is the hub of civilization. Israel is the center of the earth. All right. If Africa or Ethiopia, or which some like to say the kingdom of Aksum, or Egypt, or what some like to say Kemet, is the hub of knowledge, why did other nations and some African nations have to send their princesses and half of their riches and all kind of stuff to Solomon, to King Solomon, king of Israel, just to get a piece of knowledge? Because Israel is the hub of civilization. Israel is the hub of the earth, all right? It's the center of the world. All these other nations are just fill-ins. They're only here for a moment, The book of 1 Kings, chapter 10, verse 22. For the king had a sea, a navy of Tarshish, with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and wisdom. And all the earth sought to Solomon to hear his wisdom, which the Most High had put in his heart. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, and garments and armor and spices and horses and mules, a rate year by year. All right, so all the earth sought after King Solomon for his wisdom, all right, that the Most High put in his heart. Most High didn't put wisdom in any heathen leader or heathen ruler of a nation's heart. All right, only King Solomon, because he is an Israelite. Israel is the hub of civilization. Israel is the hub of knowledge. All right, they year by year they brought stuff to King Solomon, right? That he exceeded all kings in his riches and for his wisdom. You understand? And this king Hiram, he's the king of Tyre, which Tyre is on the coast, right? Right there on the coast, which would be Phoenicia, which of course they're Hamites, so-called Africans. All right, so Africa's not the hub of civilization, not the hub of knowledge, right, or understanding, because these African rulers brought stuff to an Israelite king to get a piece of knowledge from him. And this is why, as Israelites, we resort back to Galatians chapter 4, verse 26. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. All right. With that being said, I want to say all praises be to Ahaya Bahasham Hamashiach Yeshua Wa Rachak Wadash. All right. Death and destruction of Babylon. Hamites are going into captivity, and after that, they're going to be destroyed. All right. Due to the book of Revelation, chapter 20, they'll do 1,000 years of captivity just with the other heathens, and after that, they'll try to rebel and they'll be destroyed. All right. And we will possess Africa. So all those cats talking about Africa's this, Africa's that, it's either you get with the program or you get laid flat with those Africans. You understand? All praise be to Ahaya, Kwame Yasharala, death and destruction of Babylon.
Flow hitting hard, kinda like Street Fighter. I feel the spirit working and my rhymes get tighter. Slaying prophets of Baal, kinda like Elijah. Talk against my father and he answered with that fire. Nah, he ain't playing. Spirit got me powered up like a Super Saiyan. Praise the Most High, the Ancient of Days. Babylon ablaze for being so whorishly afraid. Decked in sorcery, laden with iniquity. Shapeshifters, witches, and wizards. G, burn them at the stake. Nah, not a flake left in the air. Jump up and cheer. Yo, pass me a beer while I watch the wicked man sear from his head to his toes, all the way to his wicked ear. Melting like a Chucky.